This is Border Battle with King and CJ with King.
You want to go get a hot dog at halftime? Well, guess what? You can also take the under in the second half of 25. You know what I mean?
And CJ.
You can win Super Bowls right now with me and Grandpa Brady over here. Let's do it that way.
Presented by the fine students and faculty of the Oklahoma State University School of Media and Strategic Communications in beautiful Paul Miller Building. Broadcast live on KXZY, OSU Student Radio. And now, live from Studio 318, it's Border Battle with Jordan the Great King and CJ the Viking Notch.
Welcome back into Studio 318 here in the Paul Miller Journalism Building. You're listening to the Border Battle on OSU Student Radio KXZY, streaming live simulcast on Suddenlink Channel 112. It's not actually live today. We're pre-recording again. It is 9 o'clock a.m. instead of 11. We just record it. You'll get to see it at 11 o'clock, 11 to noon per normal, and then that's when we'll stream it live on YouTube as well. I think we got that figured out, so be able to stream it live on both locations, and I believe we're live on KXZY right now. Is that right, Chris?
That is correct.
So if you're trying to just get the radio feed, on Wednesday mornings you have to tune in a little earlier. 9 o'clock is when we will do it on the radio, and then the simulcast will air at 11 o'clock to noon. A lot we're going to talk about today. Going to get an Orange update again, per usual. A lot of stuff going on in Oklahoma State athletics. Maybe not the big news you always get in football and basketball season, but it's just there's so much of it because all of the spring sports here at Oklahoma State are so competitive and so good. MLB update, Shohei Ohtani got rocked last night. We'll talk about that a little bit. I blame the Angels for it, actually. We'll get to that in the third segment, and then some NBA playoff talk. I think that Bucks-Celtics series is effectively over. We'll get to all that throughout the show. We're going to start in the NFL because NBA playoffs, everything going on here at Oklahoma State, the NFL stays in the headlines. Yesterday, in the morning, there was a report from Yahoo. There was a bunch of freaking out in Green Bay Packer Twitter. Is Aaron Rodgers, does he hate Green Bay now? No. He doesn't hate Green Bay. He tweeted out yesterday afternoon essentially mocking it. It was like, come on, Green Bay, you got to add some clickbait. You got to talk to some anonymous sources that don't want to be identified, blah, 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 blah. I thought that was kind of hilarious. When you first saw the report from Yahoo, do you think Aaron Rodgers has a reason to be angry with the Green Bay Packers?
I don't know. I don't really see why. I mean, I backtrack. Maybe a little bit just because of what he's, I guess, meant to the organization and stuff and what he's done, but I don't know. I'm kind of like an indifferent on it.
Here's what I think. So my buddy texted me, and a lot of Packers Twitter shared this, was, come on, Rodgers, shut up. Green Bay has given you a good career so far. Blah, 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 blah. Here's my thing. Rodgers has every right to be angry at the Packers or be frustrated, I think was the word that they used. He was frustrated and emotional. He has every right to be. They cut his best friend, Jordy Nelson, someone that, for all intents and purposes, he was going to retire with in Green Bay. And then without even consulting him, they let go of Alex Van Pelt, which was his quarterback coach. So I understand that there could be some frustration here. But Rodgers hit the nail on the head when he was talking on a rock station. Weirdly enough, he was interviewing on a rock station in Milwaukee. Figure that out. But he was interviewing on there and said, players play, coaches coach, personnel guys make those decisions. And he can be frustrated, he can be angry, and he can voice his opinion to the front office. That doesn't mean the front office has to listen to him.
Right.
As great as Rodgers has been for the Packers organization, nowhere in his contract does it say you get to make certain decisions. And quite frankly, I don't think Rodgers is in a position to where he can. He's only won one Super Bowl, and that was almost a decade ago now. A lot of people forget that's like 7 years ago for Green Bay to win a Super Bowl. So, I'm not saying that Rodgers' greatness shouldn't allow him to be. He can be angry or frustrated or whatever he was, but that doesn't necessarily mean he should get to make the decision in the franchise. He totally understands that. And I think to his credit that he does.
Now, I know these quarterbacks are in different scenarios. I'm not trying to keep bashing going after the Cowboys, but in a sense, it's kind of that same aspect of, yes, Dak and Dez didn't have that same relationship because, Dak's newer in the league. But I feel like it's kind of like you can kind of relate them both in a sense. Like they were both for financial reasons. It wasn't
Yes.
because they weren't, I guess, producing. Maybe that was a little bit more on Dez's side, maybe, but
I think it's a little
Like-
bit of a reach there. Like, if you're letting Dak run your organization after year 2 when he's not accomplished very much, that's a little bit much for the Cowboys. If you're Aaron Rodgers, you could understand if the Packers let him in on some decision making.
no, right. But that's what I was saying. What I was trying to say in the beginning was like they're in different parts of their careers. So like it's a
That's
little
why I
far.
think it's a little bit of a
far
stretch,
fetched,
right?
yeah. But it's kind of it has a hint of kind of that same style in a sense.
Yeah, I think there's some merit to
Outline.
it.
We'll say an outline, but not
because
the same.
I think you can make the distinct comparison between Jordy Nelson and Des Bryant. I think that's where the comparison
Right.
happens. Obviously, 2 very different quarterbacks and 2 very different
Yeah.
portions of their career. So that's where the difference comes in. And I think it's interesting. I don't necessarily know if I'm 100% in on that, but I can understand where you're coming from there. But I think it got overblown. I think people in Green Bay and Wisconsin kind of freaked out, overreacted to this. I don't think it's a big deal. Rodgers is not going to go out at this point in his career when he says he's in the back 9 and all of a sudden start losing on purpose. Like,
Right.
And I don't think he's going to leave. And by the way, if Aaron Rodgers doesn't want to resign in Green Bay, they can have him in Green Bay until he's 38 years old, because they got 2 years left on the deal, 2 years of franchise tagging. That'll take him until he's 38. So if Rodgers doesn't want to sign he has some incentive to sign a new deal, because at 38, he's not going to become the highest paid player in league history. So he has some
Right.
incentive to sign a deal with Green Bay. So I think it'll be interesting to see how that works itself out. Some other NFL news I thought was interesting was the captain for the New England Patriots coming out. He's a special teamer. Matthew Slater is his name. Let me get the actual quote here for you, because I thought this was interesting. Talking about the new NCAA rules where you can fair catch inside the 25-yard line on a kickoff, and it comes out to the 25-yard line, same as a touchback. He says, you take away this play from football, you're changing the fabric of the game. It really makes me ask the question, where do you go from here? What is going to happen? What would happen next? He continues, I don't know the answer to that. I look at a number of plays. I look at a goal line stand. I look at a 3rd and 1. Think about the collisions that are happening there. There are maybe deemed unsafe by some people. Those plays are as well. So I think he's got a point here. Where are you? We talked about this. We'll have a Behind the Battle podcast coming out here soon that we'll put on Facebook. What are your thoughts on this NCAA rule of this fair catch inside the 25-yard line comes out as the same as a touchback? And do you think it's something that will find its way into the NFL, and do you like it?
I'm totally in the same boat as like Matthew Slater, and it's not like why? Like I get the health the safety precautions, but it's like within the 25. Why? Really, in a sense, if you're actually gonna do it, then go, because this is for kick returns, right?
Yes.
Okay, obviously, because punt returns you can fair catch wherever you're at on the field. But no, I mean, if you're gonna do it within maybe the 5 to 10 yard line from the goal line, maybe. But 25 is just crazy to me. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's gonna hurt the college game quite a bit, maybe a little bit. And then with the pro side of it too, I don't think they're gonna do it. I would be surprised. I think there's going to be a lot of backlash from it. And, because again, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about with these organizations of, they got to do their job. I understand that, the league and what they think is best. And do you do a trial thing? Maybe. I think it'd be dumb to do. But no, I agree. I think it'd be bad for the game to also start fixing, it's like this whole head-to-head, these helmet-to-helmet contact stuff. It's starting to really eliminate what a player can even do on the field anymore.
Yeah, and Slater went on to talk about, look, everyone that's playing this game knows the risks of it. If they don't know the risks, they're essentially, I think that could have been taken the wrong way by some people, but essentially saying we know what we're signing up for here. At the NFL annual meeting, Green Bay Packers president Mark Murphy said the league's medical department presented statistics showing that concussions are 5 times as likely to happen on kickoffs as an average play. So Murphy's part of that competition committee that will end up making these kind of decisions. I think it's interesting, though, and I like that Slater mentions a couple other high-impact plays. That's something that people talk about. When there was all this talk about helmet-to-helmet contact, targeting in college, whether it should be an ejection, how safe is it, blah, 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 blah. You have all that, and then it came out that, man, maybe what happens in the trenches every play between offensive and defensive linemen could actually be worse. The sustained every single play, it's not the big hits that those players are taking, but it's the every single play, the grind of that happening. And is that actually worse for your head, for concussions, for your brain? I just wonder, because I understand that kickoffs are so dangerous, but I think it's a slippery slope to eliminating kicking from the game altogether, and I don't think you can do that.
No, and not only that, then you're looking at all these potential jobs in the sense of if you are a kicker, like you basically don't exist anymore. If you don't have kickoffs, like is a team really going to keep you on for just extra points and field goals?
Yeah,
then you might as well find a punter that can do both. Like then you'd almost be better off trying to make a hybrid player that can do kicking and punting.
Yeah, but I think you would have already seen that. As far as a kicker, their least important duty is kicking off. In fact, I would say probably half the league does relegate that to their punter, does the kickoff duties. So I actually think you're more likely to keep a place kicker than keep a punter now. Because when it comes to it, you can have a crappy punter or a good punter, and the difference between them, yes, in a defensive battle, is it going to make a big difference? Probably. But you could have a quarterback just kind of pooch punt it and still get 30, 35 yards out of it and sort of turn the field around rather than keeping on a punter, right? I think a punter would be the first to go.
Okay, yeah. So, then you could backtrack it. Your kicker could also be your punter in a sense, I think. I just think you at one point, I think you could just make probably the same position in a sense.
Yeah,
and like you said, then your quarterback could also be the pooch punter or a wide receiver or a back or running back.
You could make it a hybrid position. I think punting is less important than kicking, though.
Oh, no, I think it's fair to say, like you said, unless it's a defensive battle, yeah, that's where you get a little more cautious with it. But
if no one does it on Madden, is it really important?
Yeah.
All right, we digress. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and talk some Orange update. Baseball lost again last night. We'll tell you what that means. Another non-conference ugly loss to Oral Roberts. Not good for them. We'll talk about them. Softball, and then an update in football. All of that next on Border Battle on KXCY. Welcome back into Studio 318 here in the Paul Miller Journalism Building at Oklahoma State University. You're listening to The Border Battle with King and CJ. I'm King, he's CJ. I'm from Wisconsin, he's from Minnesota. We form The Border Battle because we don't get along. That's what they tell us, at least.
Yeah.
No. Welcome back in Studio 318. Streaming live on Suddenlink Channel 112, YouTube Live Border Battle on Demand. We're not actually recording it live, but we are streaming. We will be streaming live at 11 when you're watching this, 11 to noon. We appreciate if you are watching this. And again, shout out to the crew, again, changing up their schedule, coming in a little bit early. 9 o'clock is early for us college kids, so I was here at 6:15 this morning. No coffee. I am dragging right now. But no dragging last night for the Oral Roberts Bats because they hang 10 on the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Started off 2-0. Everything was going fine. Fast forward to the 8th inning, and it's 10-4, and game was over. What first reactions, initial reactions?
It's just showing the inconsistencies of pitching. It really is. It's something we've been preaching, though. It's like we're preaching it. It feels like all the time when we bring up baseball. Like they go on these good runs, and then it's like okay. And I think a funny like stat, at least for softball and baseball, we don't want to beat our in-state teams. I guess the other in-state universities at the moment. I mean, softball got swept by Tulsa. You have, granted, baseball has one more chance against Oral Roberts. I think it's May 1st is the game, but I mean, they've dropped 4 in a row now to Oral Roberts dating to last year. So it's, I don't know. It's just pitching to me. It seems like, the offense bounces back. They go up 2-0, and then they give up 2 runs. Now they're tied 2-2. They get a run. Now it's 3-2 for OSU, and then after a while you have I believe it was a 5-run 8th inning, and it's a backbreaker.
Yeah, I think it was a couple of 3-run innings actually, but something like that. All I know is the latter half of this game was a mess. Oklahoma State used 5 pitchers to get 6 outs in the last 2 innings. Not good. It's not good. And by the way, going back a month, well, I guess 2 days less short of a month, March 20th was the last time they won a non-conference game. March 20th. And before that, they weren't very good in non-conference play either. Now, you have to give this team credit because they're doing it when it matters in conference play. But let's just hope the baseball selection committee doesn't view non-conference wins as the men's basketball committee does. But I mean, Oklahoma State's tied for first place right now in the Big 12 with Oklahoma, which could set up here a really awesome Bedlam matchup coming up here the end of the month, 27th, 28th, and 29th, splitting those between Stillwater and Tulsa. This is awesome. I mean, you're going to have a shot here, and obviously you can't forget about Texas. Texas is right there. Texas Tech is right there. You can't forget about those 2 teams. But if this is the 2-horse race down the stretch, it's going to be a fun race to watch, obviously with in-state rivals, the Bedlam matchup, Kyler Murray being going to be such a prominent figure on their football team this fall for OU, and being one of their better players here, hitting cleanup and third for their baseball team. There's so many storylines that could jut out from this race in. I just think it could be really interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's going to set up, if anything, depending on how Texas Tech do kind of finish out the conference schedule season. This Norman game could be or Bedlam, I should say. It could be totally whoever I guess wins the series could potentially either win the conference or has a better shot, or it could knock one of the others out because OSU ends with Texas Tech. So if Texas Tech is hanging around, and let's say we take 2-3 or whatever from OU, and we take care of Kansas like we should, and Baylor, even if you lose 1 or 2 there, I mean it could come down to the last weekend for a conference championship.
Yeah, and it probably will. I think that's the nature of this conference and in baseball, but it's going to be interesting down the stretch. I worry about Oklahoma State not being able to beat teams in non-conference. That worries me. So we'll see how they continue to play down the stretch here in Big 12 play. On Twitter, the Big 12 announced on Monday their Big 12 softball players of the week. The pitcher of the week was Emmy Robertson, Oklahoma State starting pitcher, and the player of the week was Vanessa Shippey. She had 13 hits. over the course of the last week. And Emmy Robertson pitched over 13, I believe 14 innings actually this last week. And obviously it was a good week, 5-0. You sweep Baylor. You put yourself back in the conversation for a title, a conference title. You're right there, and Coach Gajewski talked about that on Sunday. So I think it'll be interesting this week. Tonight they go up to Wichita State, and that's a big non-con game there. But you're all right losing that. You're not all right losing it, but you're more all right losing that one and getting good performances this weekend down in Austin. Because if you can sweep Texas, it's you and OU. It comes down to that final series of the year. If you are able to take 2 of 3, you might have to sweep OU depending on if they continue to win. That's going to be an interesting series. That could set up to be one of the all-time great series in OSU's program, honestly. If you're able to sweep a Bedlam series to win the conference would be absolutely incredible. But these two players, obviously the anchors this week and probably going to be moving forward for this team.
Yeah, to go off what you're saying too. Yeah, if you lose to Wichita State, it's not the end of the world. Like you said, now you're getting to the end of the season where the conference schedule games mean more than. I mean, not to say non-conference doesn't mean anything, but you're more focused on if you can get your good outings against your Big 12 teams like they did against Baylor, where the bats came alive like they always do, and pitching was phenomenal. I mean, that's what you're wanting most, especially when you still have the chance to possibly take the championship out of OU's hands, which, preseason, everyone was like, it is OU's. Like, it's theirs to lose in a sense. And yet here's, OSU, Texas, even though some people, Kim Jordan, I think, was the one that said Texas is kind of, they don't think they're going to last. I mean,
several people have said that to me.
So it's hard to say.
And by the way, if Texas is able to sweep OSU, which God forbid, down in Texas. But if they are, OU's might be in some trouble because Texas hasn't lost in Big 12 play yet. They're 12-0 or 9-0. OU is 12-0, whatever that is. So, for what it's worth, this going to be interesting down the stretch either way in the conference, unless it's some weird split of Oklahoma State taking 2 against Texas. I don't know if that really helps either team that much.
I was just say, I think it's fair to say whatever happens with this Texas series basically shows which team I want to say which team actually has a chance to go against, like, to take out OU.
Well, yeah,
it's basically like you said, either team gets swept, it's over. I think if you win, whatever team wins 2 or 3 has the best chance.
Yes,
like for Texas's sake, I think.
Yes,
OSU, if OSU loses, I think even one more. Because then the pressure's on to have to sweep OU unless OU loses another conference game before the conference final. So
yes. I think you have to, at this point, you're probably going to have to sweep OU. You're probably going to have to sweep, at the very least, win 2 of 3 against Texas. If you're Texas, you probably don't want to lose twice to OU. Or OSU, I mean. You would not want to lose twice because that puts you, again, you almost have to play perfectly then against OU. So I do worry about, if you're Texas, you have to worry about losing any games or losing more than one game this weekend. So I think that's interesting as well. By the way, Emmy Robertson, only one of 2 Big 12 pitchers to post a shutout last week. She did that against Missouri State and then gave up just 1 run against Baylor. So 2 outings, giving up 1 run. That's good for the old ERA, I would say. So, and obviously we talked about Chippy. I think I saw a stat this weekend when I was out there. She has scored as many times as she's been on, as she has hits.
Really?
So she is. That doesn't mean she scored every time she's been on base, but she scores as many times as she has hits. So obviously she walks a lot as well. But with that and the fact that she rarely strikes out, just obviously a great leader for this Oklahoma State team. All right, let's move on to some football news. Football is kind of at their point in the spring season to where they're releasing some of these these positional profiles. And the headline for the receiving corps was a golden era for Oklahoma State receivers. And it centers around the receivers coach, Casey Dunn, who has been at Oklahoma State since 2011. Last year, 2017, he was the 247 wide receivers coach of the year. Obviously, you talk about James Washington being one of the better prospects in this draft at the wide receiver position. He was a Biletnikoff Award winner. And he joins Justin Blackman, who did it back in 2011, top 5 pick for Blackman in that draft. Here's the thing. The offensive rankings for OSU since he's been there I have the receiving offense 5 times they've been in the top 10. He's had the entire offense in the top 10 3 times. I think the passing has been up there 4 times. Obviously, you've had Mason Rudolph, so that helps. But this guy obviously knows how to get it done on the offensive side of the ball. And to his credit, Mike Gundy has given him the keys to the offense, essentially. I know Yurcich is also a guy that you have to credit for all of this. But those receivers, you got a long track record now, like 7-8 years now of great receivers in this program. And it looks like it's only getting better with the depth that they have at the position now, even with all the graduates.
Yeah, and to add to that, he, out of his 7 seasons, 5 of them, he's had at least one 1,000-yard receiver as well to add to that. So again, I feel like the staff that Mike Gundy has around him is at times underrated. Some of these positional players, and yes, you have to give Mike Yurcich some of the credit as well for the offensive side of things. But if you have a wide receiver coach like what Dunn here has done so far, I mean, it just goes to show the commitment and that the players buy into kind of what he's telling them, and then also it's going to, they're producing it on the field as well.
Yeah, and this team, like I said, you lose Washington, you lose Aitman, you lose Chris Lacey, all of these 3 guys who are expected to get drafted at some point in the NFL draft and play at the next level. Washington and Aitman thought of by many to have NFL styles of play. I think it's going to be it's really to a testament to him, Dunn, and this entire recruiting staff, the fact that they're probably deeper than they ever have been at this position moving into next year. And with a young quarterback, whether it be Cornelius or the freshman that's coming in, Spencer Sanders, they're going to need good receivers. Jalen McCleskey going to be one that they kind of rely on and lean on to be the leader of that group next year. I thought it was interesting. I thought it was really impressive this year in the NFL to have 4,000-yard passer, 2,000-yard receivers, and a 1,000-yard rusher. The Chiefs did that. Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Alex Smith, and Kareem Hunt. Oklahoma State did that this year. Aitman, Washington, Rudolph, and Justice Hill.
Yeah, and to add too, real quick with the wide receivers, you also have Tylan Wallace, who had some reps, and you have Tyron Johnson, who transferred from LSU.
Yeah, so those are probably going to be the starting 3 you'd think going into camp. I don't necessarily know. There's a lot of talent backing those guys up.
And you have Dylan Stoner that contributed quite a bit. So, yeah, it'll be a tough competition.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch this fall. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Shohei Ohtani got rocked last night. We're going to be talking some MLB. And then after that, we're going to talk some Thunder and get to the NBA playoffs. That's next on OSU Student Radio KXCY.
Against Kansas in that win, 12 threes made. Against OU, 9 threes made. Against Baylor, both times they played them, 5 threes.
Falling into this role, I kind of like it. Just any chance I get to throw for this team, I go out there and help them out in any way possible. I love to do that for them.
Is it disappointing for this team to know that they could potentially, if given the opportunity, have success in March, but the thing is it's looking less and less like they're actually going to get there?
I mean, you're dealing with one, right now, the premier softball program in the nation in Oklahoma.
the journalism building. You're listening to The Border Battle with King and CJ on OSU Student Radio KXCY, streaming live, Suddenlink Channel 112, YouTube Live, Border Battle on demand. We're not streaming live today. We're pre-recording. 9:30 it is, just a couple hours, hour and a half before we normally go live. But you're watching when you normally would be, so happy 11:30 when this happens. We're going to talk about some baseball here, Chris. That was an interesting couple of games yesterday, bumping in there with the Royals and the Toronto Blue Jays. I almost called them the Raptors. The Toronto Blue Jays. That was doubleheader, and the Blue Jays beat them 11-3 in the first game, and then walked off in 10 innings in the second game. Not a positive year this year for the Royals. Let's just say that. Kind of had a fire sale, much like the Marlins did, and back to square one. Kind of rebuilding again. That's what those markets have to do. You're a Minnesota fan. I'm a Milwaukee fan. To a certain extent, I'm a Milwaukee fan. This is what those kind of markets have to do. You have to rebuild. It's just you can't have the sustained success that LA and that New York and Boston have.
Yeah, when you're as small of a market as those teams are, that's what you have to do. And especially when you're that small market, look at KC. They had maybe a 2 to 4 year time span for the championship window with the core group they had, and then it kind of fizzled out, and then it was like, okay, it's time to get rid of them before their value drops even more. Look what granted Eric Hosmer walked and stuff, so they didn't really do a lot of trading. But
and you can make the argument the Royals blew it.
Right.
They let Kane walk. He was signed in free agency to the Brewers. Hosmer walked. Moustakas was going to walk. They were going to let him walk, and he just couldn't find anything and actually came back on a pretty team-friendly deal. So credit to him for some, taking that deal, because he probably shouldn't have at this point in his career, if I'm being completely honest. Speaking of L.A., Shohei Ohtani made his third start yesterday. It didn't last very long. Well, it lasted plenty long, but it was only 2 innings. He threw more than 60 pitches in 2 innings, 66 of them, just 34 of them for strikes. That's just over 50%. But he only walked 2. I thought this was interesting. Statistically, you look at this, and it's not that bad until you see that last part, the 66 pitches, and only 34 of them for strikes. That's not good, because 4 hits, 3 earned runs. Okay, you had a bad inning. No, this was Ohtani struggling with location with his off-speed pitches is what it was last night for Ohtani. Your first reaction seeing the Red Sox kind of shell him a little bit sounded like he came out because of a blister, so he might have to go on the DL now, heaven forbid. Your first reactions?
It was bound to happen at some point. Yes, he was doing great, but at the same time, this game kind of shows you as well that he's still a rookie. He's still learning. They said too, I was reading up that the baseballs are different here. In Japan, they have the seams are higher. Here the MLB, the balls are smoother and stuff. So they think maybe that's what partially contributed to the blisters happening. They speculation. They haven't really said that, but it was one of those things where it was just bound to happen, and you're bound to struggle at some point. You see it at times. Even the stars now, when they were kind of coming into the league and stuff, you're gonna have games where you're just not on it. And it showed that he had no control over any of his pitches. And like you said, the last stat of which pitches were in the strike zone, 34 to 66. That shows how bad it really was. But I don't know. I don't see a cause for concern.
This is the Angels' fault.
The Angels' fault.
This is the Angels' fault. They were asking for this. We talked about it, Chris. You are trying to baby Shohei Ohtani. He's your new toy. You want to keep him shiny. It's the new car smell. You want to keep it in there as long as you can. You're babying him right now. You are going to have him pitch Sunday, 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 Sunday. You're just going to have him pitch once a week. You can hit 3 or 4 times a week, but you're only pitching that Sunday. Well, now you get your game postponed on Sunday. He moves back to Tuesday. He hasn't pitched in 9 days. No wonder he loses control. People don't realize when your favorite closer, when the Minnesota closer gets 12 days off because they don't have a save situation and comes back in, where are his off-speed pitches? Throwing them for balls. It's incredibly hard to stay in a groove, to stay, kind of in a good sort of rut with your pitches when you aren't pitching. It's impossible. Why do you think, if it was all about rest, why does Clayton Kershaw pitch in the last 5 days of the season when everything's clinched up? because you have to keep him in a routine. Because if he doesn't throw, if he doesn't have that game action, you lose it. You lose your stuff. And for off-speed guys, for guys that aren't super powerful, now Ohtani has a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, but he's still, it's that splitter, that off-speed stuff that gets hitters to swing and miss, which is what's so big about him. So I 100% blame the Angels. You tried to be too careful, and now you're gonna pay for it.
Well, and I think it's hard though too. Yes, when you're younger, like you said, the players are younger. You want to. It's the whole Bader thing. I agree with that. I think the other thing with the whole closer thing, I get the example you're making, but I think when you're up higher, it's kind of like you're saying with Kershaw. I think even as closers, even if you don't have games that need to be saved, I think sometimes that's why you see them even warming up, or they'll come in for a few because, like you said, again, it's to add to your point of you have to keep these guys in a routine. Yes, when you're a closer, I get it. It's totally different. You may pitch, a couple nights in a row for saves, and then obviously they try and give you a break because usually you can't consistently go day in and day out saving every single, like you will get exhausted.
I'm not saying Shohei Ohtani should pitch every day. I'm just saying you got to keep him in a more regular routine than every 7 days pitching, right?
Right.
Am I crazy?
No, but I want to ask you this. Does this make you think that the Angels are wanting to keep him more of as a hitter? Or as because he's batting more than he's pitching, and I get like a rest thing, and I understand it, but it's like if you have this, so now I guess, and to add on to that, with them playing Tuesday, does he pitch now on Sunday, or do they go to like a week on every Tuesday now?
It sounds like his next scheduled start is going to be Monday.
So I don't know. Now they're just, if he pitches anyway, I should say. But
I don't know what the schedule looks like. If they have off days in there, that might be 5 days. If you can start getting him into a 5-day rotation, sure. But I just think you're trying to be too careful with him. And by the way, I would rather have him as a pitcher. More valuable. If you look at the drop off in economics, our audio guy will laugh at this one. You talk about opportunity cost in economics. What is the opportunity cost of him as a hitter? Your next best hitter is Mike Trout. That's still a pretty good hitter, right? If you look at your next best pitcher after Shohei Ohtani, you start to have some problems maybe with that pitching staff. So I would say he's more valuable to the Angels as a pitcher. All right, I want to move on because we spent a little extra on that than I wanted to. Giancarlo Stanton continues to strike out. You have any concerns that the lights are a little too bright up there in New York?
I think maybe a little bit. I think part of it's also this pressure as well. Because let's face it, when you're with the Marlins, you're not as like the Marlins were just bad. Let's be
playing
real.
in front of jumbo shrimp crowds.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. And so yeah, you're now in a number one big market. The market's different from New York to Florida Marlins.
Absolutely.
Like by far. So it's a whole different lifestyle. And sure, do you blame it maybe on a transition? You can, but you shouldn't, because he is a professional ball player.
And he's a veteran.
It shouldn't take you this long. If you're maybe a rookie or younger, I could see maybe a little bit, but no, maybe it's a little cause for concern, but I think he's also just going to be one of those batters that he either hits it out of the park or he strikes out. I mean, this isn't the same type of player, but Miguel Sano has also kind of been known for that. Of either you're going to hit the ball out of the park, maybe get a double, or you're going to strike out. And maybe now it's going to be this mental game with him of can he get out of this funk? Is this going to start being a thing? Because, when you're in a bigger market, spotlight's on you, you're going to start hearing that outside noise of, was this a bad trade for the Yankees? What's wrong with, Stanton? Is there something, mental? Is there an injury? Is there something lingering? There's all these questions arise. And then him as a person needs to be able to block that out, but the organization also has to be there to help him through this if it is a potential mental, lapse or whatever it may be.
Yeah, something that's interesting. Giancarlo Stanton, his two most striking out the 2 years he struck out the most. 2014 he had 170, and 2017 he had 163. And he actually had 166 earlier in his career, but that was he was just coming into the league. He had 166 back in 2011. So those are the top three of Giancarlo Stanton striking out. Let me read you the home run totals from those years. 34 in 2011, 37 in 2014, 59 last year. When Giancarlo Stanton starts striking out, he hits home runs. The correlation is there because He's swinging for the fences, right? He's just swinging hard. And obviously last year he was chasing a home run record, so you understand why he was probably striking out more than you wanted him to. His average has never really been great. He's a career 267 hitter. That's not that good. But when you can hit the ball as hard as he can and as far as he can, I think that's something you take into consideration.
Real quick, because I know you want to. We have run out of time here, but so would you rather him just keep swinging for the fences, or would you want him to maybe back up and be like, "Hey, we just want you to get on base"?
Well, he's hitting after Aaron Judge, so you can give him the reins. I mean, he's going to have guys on base when he comes up to bat. So I think you're probably going to ask him to keep swinging for the fences, not change your game. But it's interesting because you got Didi Gregorius and Gary Sanchez, two guys who can hit home runs behind him. So if you can get on base, you're going to get driven home. So it'll be interesting to see if he adjusts at all. I want to get to this real quick, this Anthony Rizzo story. We'll probably talk about this more on Friday because I think it's an interesting conversation to have. He says the MLB players play too often. He says, I think we play too much baseball. Yes, guys are going to take pay cuts, but are we playing this for the love of the game or for the money, or do we love this game? I know it's both, but in the long run, it will make everything better, end quote. What do you think about this? And if they're going to shorten the season, how do they do it?
I don't know. To me it more just baffles me. Is it too long? I think the thing is, if you're gonna have it, I guess the season as long as it is, then do something maybe different with the playoffs. Maybe you kind of incorporate like an NFL type thing, or the WNBA thing is where like the finals for them is 5 instead of like going 7. And I know you can't change the World Series right now. Okay, maybe not the World Series, but I don't know. I think if you're going to shorten, I don't know. I'm with really him. He mentions that there's no reason to be playing baseball in 20-degree weather. He's absolutely right. There's no reason to start the season in March, in my opinion. I think it could be shortened. Why make people play 162 games in like 185 days? I understand that's part of what's great about baseball is the grind of it. But if you're going to start having players complain about it, now you can call him soft or whatever. I'm just saying that's an actual conversation that needs to be had. So we got to take a break, but we'll talk a little bit more about that on Friday because I think it's an interesting topic. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Pelicans 2-0. Is it over for Portland? We'll tell you that next. Border Battle, KXCY.
Welcome back into Studio 318 here in the Paul Miller Journalism Building. You're listening to The Border Battle with King and CJ on OSU Student Radio KXZY. We just saw there Shohei Ohtani getting shelled, so good on him. We talked baseball last segment. We're going to talk a little basketball here, NBA playoffs. You're listening on OSU Student Radio KXZY, streaming live 11 to noon on Suddenlink Channel 112, YouTube Live, Border Battle On Demand, Facebook.com/Border Battle Show is our Facebook. If you're trying to find us on Twitter, we're at Border Battle OSU on Twitter. And we're trying to get Ricky Fowler on, so hashtag get Ricky if you're watching this. Hashtag get Ricky. We need to get some more momentum here. We're running out of time to get Ricky on. But anyways, we're going to talk some basketball here, Chris. Bucks Celtics last night. Is that series over? I tend to think it is.
I think so. I don't think it'll be a sweep. I still think Milwaukee's going to get one at home. I think they're capable of getting one, but I don't know. To me, the Celtics are proving all the doubters wrong. Jaylen Brown has stepped up. He is now the youngest Celtic in playoff history to score 30 points in a game, which you're rolling your eyes like, oh, who cares? But I don't know. It's to me right now this team's showing that hey, it's for real. Like it's not going to be a cakewalk, at least in this round. I'm not going to say what could happen in the next round, but
it is a cakewalk in this round, and they're being made a cakewalk by the inept Milwaukee Bucks, and they will not be retaining their head coach. You cannot retain whatever his name is. That's their intermediate or interim coach, whatever his name is. Obviously not very good because I can't remember it. Giannis shoots 17 times to score 30 points. Wildly efficient night for him. Chris Middleton even more efficient, 10 for 14 for 25 points. Jabari Parker plays 10 minutes in the playoffs. Joel Embiid, Shohei Ohtani. It's really working when we save these guys, right? When we just put them out and don't use them what we drafted and signed them to do, right? Just sit on the bench, take some time off. He was minus 15 when he was on the court for those 10 minutes. That's how bad Jabari Parker was last night. He shot twice. Why even put him on the court? Either give him enough time to get into the flow of the offense and make an impact on the offensive side of the ball, or don't put him in. There's no reason to do it. Joel Prunty, I think, is his name, the coach of the Bucks.
To add to that, I think Eric Bledsoe is overrated.
Absolutely, he's overrated.
You scored 9 points in the first game on 4 of 12. You scored 12 on 5 of 13 last night. Where is so-called Eric Bledsoe? You know, he made the comments about him and Terry Rozier.
He's not that good, right?
Right, but there's always this whole hype around like, oh, you know, he could get the Bucks. Like he was kind of potentially a missing link is what kind of the headlines were. And now, you know, and then the comments he makes about Terry Rozier, and it's like Rozier's making you look even worse than you already are. Like you are getting Rozier is schooling you.
By the way, Rozier I don't think Rozier is very good. I just think he's having the series of his life right now, by the way, for what it's worth. 23 points last night again, 30, like you said, for Jaylen Brown. I thought the interesting thing was Morris, Monroe, and Larkin all had double digits on the bench. If they're going to have that kind of balanced scoring, they're going to be tough to beat.
Yeah, and which is funny because I told you when they played the first time that I was like, I don't think it's going to happen that they can get, you know, almost 5 guys scoring 20 points apiece. And, you know, again, they're contributing. But I think you can also give it to Brad Stevens. Brad Stevens is getting the most like he always does. And I know, again, here comes the like, overrated?
Brad Stevens gets too much credit.
Are you serious?
Tweet your hot take. How can he be underrated when everyone in the world calls him underrated? Everyone in the world says he should be the coach of the year. How is that underrated?
I just think because he's just not getting for what. We're
gonna have
to because of what he's doing with the roster he's got.
At some point between now and Friday, we're gonna have to look up the definition of underrated, and look at all the hype that surrounds Brad Stevens, and you can try to convince me that he's underrated.
All right.
He's trending on Twitter every night the Celtics win. He is. Not any of their players anymore. Not Kyrie, not Gordon Hayward.
We just want to see that award. Then he doesn't need to be underrated.
But he isn't. He is not underrated by the actual definition of underrated. Has he been recognized in the past? No. That doesn't mean that this year he's not being appreciated. Look on Twitter. Look on social media. Look at what the media are saying. It's all about Brad Stevens and what he's done with this team. It's like calling Pop underrated.
Pop is underrated.
No, he's not. No, he's not. Pop gets talked about for every Spurs win. Now they talk about Greg Popovich. They did
Yeah?
during Tim Duncan's era. They talked about Greg Popovich more than they did Tim Duncan. They've talked about after Kyrie Irving got hurt. All I've heard is Brad Stevens, Brad Stevens, Brad Stevens. I don't know how you can call that underrated.
I don't know. I just give him credit, man. But hey,
if
it's
your
all right.
definition of underrated is he hasn't been rewarded yet for great coaching, sure, you can have that because he hasn't. He will this year. He's probably going to win Coach of the Year. But to say that, by the true definition of underrated, I just don't think Brad Stevens is.
Fair enough.
Anyways, people just go on Twitter and search Brad Stevens' name. You'll see hundreds of millions of tweets. Anyways, Raptors Warriors. This one, 2-0 to the Raptors.
Wizards.
Raptors Wizards. Sorry, this one 2-0 to the Raptors. 130 to 119. DeMar DeRozan 37 points. He now has 12 games of 30 or more points in the playoffs. Every other Raptors in history combined, that includes Chris Bosh, just 12. So now he is by far and away the best player in Raptors history, in my opinion. What say you?
Yeah, no, I agree. Again, it's kind of like we talked about right before the playoffs were starting. Is that Toronto's gotten over that. They've gotten rid of their demons, so to speak, and the Wizards just aren't that good to begin with. The Wizards just they're discombobulated. I just don't think they're that great of a team. There's no consistency with them, and maybe part of it's because Wall. I mean, yeah, he's been back now for a little bit, but does that add to it? Maybe, but the Raptors are just playing great. DeMar and even Kyle Lowry, for that matter, are actually showing up, which is making a big difference. Which shows that if you actually show up for the playoff games, they could actually win games.
This is another kind of a negative look at John Wall again. He scores 29 points, but his team loses yet again with him in the lineup. Even though he plays well, Bradley Beal scores 9 points. Those two, if they can't figure out a way to be teammates and figure out a way to put the team in front of themselves, this Washington Wizards game isn't going to win a game in this series, and they'll be going home or staying home when that series returns to Washington.
Yeah, and their bench carried their starters last night,
Yep.
which is crazy. And like you said, yeah, but that's the thing with the Wizards. If Wall and Beal are not in sync and scoring at a high rate, this Wizards team is always in trouble. That's just how it's been. They've
play
never
together.
been. Yeah, they don't mesh well. They never have. So I think that they'll just kind of get blown up from within.
Bradley Beal's got a good point that he's probably more important than John Wall to that team on the court. John Wall's more important in getting butts in the seats and being a marketing tool. He's the sexier name, if you want to say, for marketing standpoint. But I think if you look at it over the past couple of years, Bradley Beal's been the more effective player for the Wizards. So I don't know if that's a hot take or not. The last one, this is interesting. I thought the Portland Trailblazers had a shot at sweeping the Pelicans. Pelicans take the first 2 games of this series, 111-102 last night, 33 from Drew Holiday, and 22 from Anthony Davis. Portland's in trouble, aren't they?
They are, and I really want to add real quick, because I think you'll agree with this. Besides the Toronto Washington, the other 2 series right now with the New Orleans, Portland, and Milwaukee, Boston, I think we're surprised to see that it's 2-0 for both. At least I am. I felt like the Boston Milwaukee was a potential to maybe go maybe 5, maybe 6.
Yes, I thought I'm not shocked New Orleans Portland is 2-0. I thought it would be Portland 2-0 though.
Well, I guess that's what I mean though.
Right,
Like
yeah,
which
no, I know.
teams are actually up 2-0 is more of a surprise. But again, I was saying this before the show, playoff Rondo is here. Like, and I get it. He's a tool, so to speak. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I think he's just a cocky player and stuff. But I mean, when he can contribute and stuff, I mean, I don't know. I still think, I think New Orleans had a chance. I know your kind of concern was with Anthony Davis. Could he keep it up?
Yeah.
And I mean, he's shown he has. Drew Holiday though also
that's what
just
I mean.
showed
That's
up.
what I also. If you go back to Monday's show, that's what I said. I said I don't think the supporting cast is good enough to be able to continue playing at the rate that they're playing at. And Drew Holiday proved me wrong. 14 of 24, 33 points. Rajon Rondo, 1 assists shy of a triple-double last night. You know, something last night on the show that I produce at Triple Play, Kieran Steckley, the host of that show, as he said, last year, remember, Chicago won both games in Boston. Then Rajon Rondo got hurt, and Celtics won the next 4 games. So I think he made a decent point last night. How valuable is Rajon Rondo in the playoffs? If Rajon, as a Bucks fan, would I trade Rajon Rondo for Eric Bledsoe right now? Absolutely. Absolutely. And I can't stand Rondo, but he balls in the playoffs.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. It's if you have a engaged Rajon Rondo in the playoffs, it shows what he can do, and he's got the experience from when he was with the Celtics. I mean, he's learned in a sense. He's got the playoff experience and the knowledge. But I think to add to that, when with the defense that Drew Holiday is playing on Damian Lillard, when the past 2 games, I think Lillard is 0 for 8, a couple turnovers against Holiday when Holiday is primary defender. And, you know, again, Portland had the role players. They contributed. They did what they needed. But Dame just had he was 7 for 18. But then McCollum is 9 for 21, which 22 points. But I'm like, you're 9 for 21.
Yeah, 21 shots to get 22 points is not very good.
Yeah. So again, but this is like the Washington Wizards. I mean, these two flow. They work very well together. Lillard and McCollum do. But if they're not on, you can have your role players, but you're in trouble.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Looking forward to these games tonight. Who do you got? Cleveland, Indiana. Minnesota, Houston. Houston. Here's the thing. I think Oklahoma City finishes a sweep this week of Utah. Am I crazy? Sell me on why I'm crazy.
You're crazy because I think Utah's going to win at least one at home because of the playoff crowd. They're going to be hyped because they're doing stuff. Yes, Donovan Mitchell, I think, may be injured and may be potentially out for the rest of the playoffs, the series. But I just think the fans will be excited because, you know, they did stuff they weren't supposed to do, and that was make it to the playoffs.
I think it's interesting. Chesapeake Energy Arena will be loud again tonight. I think it's interesting. Someone bashed them because all they are is yelling loud and they're belligerent. So I think that's interesting. That's what I want from my crowd.
Won't be bumping.
So we got to get out of here. We will join you again. We will actually be live 11 to noon on Friday. We'll talk to a couple coaches. I'm heading out to Carson Creek to talk to the golf coach this afternoon. We'll have Colin Carmichael on live. Thanks so much for the crew. For CJ, this is the Border Battle on KXCY.
Against Kansas in that win, 12 threes made. Against OU, 9 threes made. Against Baylor, both times they played them, 5 threes.
Falling into this role, I kind of like it. Just any chance I get to throw for this team and go out there and help them out in any way possible. I love to do that for them.
Is it disappointing for this team to know that they could potentially, if given the opportunity, have success in March, but the thing is it's looking less and less like they're actually going to get there?
I mean, you're dealing with right now, the premier softball program in the nation in Oklahoma.
What?